Okay. All right. So Tuesday before Thanksgiving, there will be a class. It will be available online. Somebody please remind me to record. So, you know, if you want to come, don't come if you don't want to come. But I have no idea what I'm doing on Tuesday, but there'll be something. Okay. So I spent last night trying to figure out a new way to make Hello World work. Android Studio updates a lot. The satellite feed does not update a lot, and we end up in crazy limbo where things don't work. But this at least worked for me last night and this morning. So I changed to 31s to 30s, which we've always had to do because LaSalle's not up to date. And then, but that trick that I gave you 2 weeks ago stopped working. But this worked. So I took in the Gradle, there's this section near the bottom called dependencies. And I just took the dependencies from some old working Hello World and pasted it in. And then the new not working Hello World started working. So that's my solution. And hopefully it will last us to the end of the semester. We'll see. All right. I think if they change one more time in the next 2 weeks and I can't figure it out, then everybody just gets an A or something. All right, so you're hoping, right? Okay, so let's go on to today's stuff. Guess I should ask, are there any questions first? All right, so this is going to be, we generated dynamically a set of radio buttons, and then we did check boxes, and now I'm going to do some buttons, and then you're going to turn them into a game. I don't know if I did the easy part or the hard part. But I did the part. I did the first part. That's how I can say that. I did the first part. Okay, so here are my files. I need to get first a working Hello World. Demo this new issue. At least I was having in 124. Okay, so let's start a new project. I'll call it demo 1118A. And I'm going to need that announcement back. Copying that dependency. So let's try the old trick and watch it fail. There's a 30, 30, 30, and then the old announcement was this, so I'm going to put that in and watch it fail, and hopefully watch it fail, and then put in the new thing. If either one works, I'll be happy. So there's where we had it before. In default config, that's what I was adding before. And resync it, and this is what doesn't work now. I think that that's the old, that's the XML thingy. And no, it works in this lab. Okay. So make a fool of me. All right. It wasn't working in 124. It's working in here. So that makes no sense to me. But I'll take it. But let me show that the other one also works. So in 124 there, what I just did not work. But in this lab, it does work. So I have no idea. Let's just have two possibilities and then here's what I did last night to get through last night. Change that. And it did not do this. That also should work. Really test effect doing different things in different labs. So, all right. So in this lab, I have two ways to get a working hello world, but in 124, only that second one was working. Okay, so I have a working hello world. And now I'm going to go to modules, download this example. The main activity. The main activity, let's look at it here. There's a text view that says rows and columns. There's a button and there's a linear layout that's vertical. So there's everything, most everything's dynamic. Just a container, a button to get some action, a container to hold stuff, and a text view to say what's going on. This, I want resources. Layout, code, I want to paste it in. Linear layout, button, text view, and then code. Not too much code. We'll get to your part pretty quickly today. So what this does is generates a grid of buttons, and then the buttons have a click event. So first I have the overall button that just very logically says button, and then I make this grid of buttons. And if I click on them, they have a click event. And I gave them just a little tag that said 4-1 to say that it was, I just clicked on the 4th row in the 1st column. That was the 9th row in the 4th column. So I just wanted to be able to distinguish the different buttons. So I need to know which button I'm pressing. And so I gave them a quick little tag for that purpose. Okay. So how did we do this? Okay. So I connected to the interface with the button. I connected to the interface with the linear layout. I decided how many rows and columns I was going to have. I made a loop over rows. I started at 1 like a bad computer scientist. And so I went from 1 to row. Maybe I should have gone from 0 to ρ-1, or maybe used until, but there you have it. I started counting at 1. And I'm going to put linear layouts, horizontal linear layouts inside my vertical linear layout. And that's going to help me, then I don't have to control the positioning of everything too much. Because if I have the linear layout that's already there that's vertical, I'm going to put linear layouts inside it. They're going to sort of make my rows, and then the things that those rows are linear layouts, and they're going to be horizontal. So anything that I'm going to put in the row is just going to be positioned right next to each other. So I don't have to do too much work in positioning things inside. So I'm sort of getting myself inside these containers, and then those containers being linear layouts, they're controlling where things are positioned. And I don't have to do all the crazy positioning. They're just going to be next to each other within a row horizontally, and then the different rows will be arranged vertically. So I made a new linear layout. So we've seen similar code before because we made dynamic radio buttons, we made dynamic checkboxes. When we played with the checkboxes and we had columns, the linear layouts were there in design. So previously the linear layouts were not dynamic. But in this case, I want to be able to change the number of rows. And so I'm making the linear layout dynamic. But I don't have to. There are other approaches here, but that's what I did. I wanted this one to be a horizontal linear layout. So I set the orientation of my linear layout I just made. I set it to horizontal, and I added it to my vertical linear layout. And when you add things to a vertical linear layout, they just get placed one underneath the other. So a new linear layout that I add to the vertical linear layout gets put below whatever is already there. Then once I have my new row, my new row linear layout, I start another loop. And again, still a bad counter, starting from 1, going up to column. I'm making a new button. I'm setting its text, in this case, just to an empty space. And I am setting its tag. The tag wanted to be text, so I needed a quote just to cast it as a string, or I could do some weird 2-string thing. Either way, this is usually my cheap route to make a string. And I'm just doing the row, the I, and the column J, and setting it equal to making that the tag with a little delimiter in between. So if I wanted to know individually the row and column, I could do some splitting on this underscore. So that's the purpose of the underscore. One is just to be able to identify the buttons, their I and their J, but also to, if I wanted to separate that information, have some delimiter. So if I wanted to play something like Minesweeper and I want to know when I click on something who its neighbors are, then I'll figure out its row and its column, and then I can find the corresponding stuff. I add that within the linear layout, which I just made a second ago. I'm adding the button, and I'm adding the button a listener. So we did this sort of thing in a checkbox where as we're making them, we're giving them a listener. And here's my simple little listener. This is a function I made up outside of onCreate, or method. And all it has is a toast. I have to work a little bit harder because I'm not inside onCreate, so I chose application context. And I just sort of go through my litany of this, and then base context and application context until something worked. And I wish I could tell you something smarter than that, but I just do it by trial and error. I'm displaying the tag. Again, the tag is not always quite simply just string, so I had to sort of quote sort of cast as a string. I could also do .toString would also work. Length of the toast and to show the toast. And we saw that working. Okay. So what are you going to do? You're going to turn this into a game of memory. Let's see if I can find some memory game online, in case you don't know what a memory game is. So memory games play online for free. That sounds good to me. So in memory, you have things that, so everything's there twice, and you flip two things over, and if it's a match, then they stay flipped over. If they're not a match, then you put them back. And then you keep presumably playing until you uncover them all. So you're going to turn my grid into this sort of a game. You have to keep track of one click is not the same as the other. The first click to turn over a card is different from the second click, which turns over, I'm saying turn over a card. Just there's a button, we're keeping it simple. There's a button, we're doing a, you'll set its text. You'll have some like array of letters, or maybe you'll put them into tags, and you'll change the text to show the user, and then you'll turn it back. But the first click is different from the second click, so you need to keep track of clicks. You can't, the computer's too fast for the user, so you can't display the second, I'm going to call it a card. You can't display the second card and then turn it right back over. That's too fast. The computer's too fast for a user, so you're going to have to set a timer to make sure that they take some, and then there's some time during which that card is shown. And then you're going to have some logic. If the two cards match, then you will, so if this guy's first button and the second button, you have to remember something about them, and if those things match, then you will leave it turned over. If it's not a match, you will sort of remove the text from the buttons, and the game will go on. So seems like it's a fairly simple kids game, but it's a good interface. Good interfacing exercise, because it should be fun to play. If you don't code it very well, it won't be fun to play. So make up some array. Right now I have 40 things. Either for the game, you're going to have to shuffle them up and put them in a random order. For you to test your game, for you to be a tester, either make this grid smaller so there's not too much to test, or don't shuffle, one or the other or both. So until you get it sort of working, you don't want a big random grid, because you don't want to have to play the memory game on a big grid to test. You know, too hard to see if you got it right. So make it easier on yourself. That's it for me. That was my shortest bit ever. Questions? No. All right, so I will stop recording and answer questions.